It's no secret that many of the famous people that we look up to are actually criminals. This is something that we've been exposing here on the channel. So today we're diving into the topic of the connections of the famous and predatory behavior and the dark reasons that we forgive dangerous celebrities. As we dive in, I'm drinking my morning coffee. Let me know what you're drinking. Thanks so much for subscribing as well. Now let's dive in.
Have you ever noticed how some of the most famous people in the world also seem to be some of the worst? Not just a typical, oh, I'm on TV, so I'm gonna be an ass type of energy, but also people who are outright predators. I think it's easier for us to believe that talent and notoriety are enough to define a person's character, that their greatness determines morality, and that their brilliance in one area is enough to overshadow all the flaws surrounding their persona. But if you look at the evidence, it'll suggest the opposite. Not always, but often enough for us to ask ourselves, what causes famous people to engage in exploitation? And is there a pattern that can help us better understand the connection between fame and predatory behavior?
And this is such an amazing topic because we've seen so many famous people become involved in things that are essentially crimes, evil. Some may even say satanic in some ways. But you have to question, why do they get themselves into those situations? Is it because they are untouchable and they could do what they want and they have an evil streak? Is it because they get manipulated into that space, or are they getting abused along the way and just kind of get themselves in that crime path? There's so many different ways that celebrities can get involved, and today we're going to unlock a bit of the reasons why. But really, why do we still look up to these people?
I want to make something clear that should be obvious, but in case it isn't already, not all celebrities have sociopathic tendencies. And yes, the media does sensationalize negative stories about celebrities, often in a bad faith attempt to spark the next wave of moral panic. Has rap music caused more harm to the black community than racism? Does playing Grand Theft Auto make people more violent? That kind of bull. It's easier for them to oversimplify complex situations and spin them into something that'll generate more attention and subsequently more money, especially when it comes to superstars and other high-profile figures, which in turn clouds our judgment. And while there are plenty of celebrities that we can point to as, unproblematic, at least with the information available to us at this moment, we have seen enough stories on the other side where we witness athletes, actors, and artists committing actions that were so extreme that we struggle to make sense of it, given what we think we knew about them, and honestly, what we chose to acknowledge. My parents used to tell me that each of us in this life is capable of great good and great evil, and that we shouldn't let our worst decisions define who we are. But I never understood how to interpret that statement growing up, because when you're a kid, everything is fed to you in a way that makes you see and understand things in a black and white manner. When I was 6, it was easy for me to accept that the Power Rangers were the good guys and that Mesagog was evil and needed to have his plans of world domination stopped. But when you get older, complex situations become the norm and moral conclusions are no longer as easy to arrive at.
And something that we're noticing now with society is that a lot of the people who are in elite or called the elite status, although that's quite controversial itself, they're the ones that are doing a lot of these wrongdoing things and being protected by people even higher up than them in, leading the industry, in government, in the law system. And it makes it difficult to really understand and break down how society allows these types of things to happen.
I remember when the R. Kelly controversy was first happening and feeling confused whenever I saw so many adults still dancing the step in the name of love at every barbecue, wedding, and baby shower. And with me being the precocious little kid that I was, I felt compelled to ask them, hey, why is it okay to still listen to R. Kelly when y'all know he's a pedophile? I knew about stranger danger and the idea that adults aren't supposed to touch a kid's private parts, and that if it did happen, it wasn't something to joke about. But the responses that I'd get would consist of defensiveness and just blatant excuses being made. But what was more confusing to me was that they themselves would make pedo jokes about R. Kelly while in the same breath telling me to mind my own business whenever I would try to confront them.
What the hell is wrong with you people? Every famous that gets arrested is not Nelson Mandela? Yes, the government conspires to put a lot of innocent black men in jail on fallacious charges, but R. Kelly is not one of those men. We all know the nigga can sing, but what happened to standards? What happened to bare minimums? You a fan of R. Kelly? You want to help R. Kelly? Then get some counseling for R. Kelly. Introduce him to some older women. Hide his camcorder. But don't pretend like the man is a hero. And stop the damn dancing. Act like you got some goddamn sense, people. Damn. Don't playing around here. Boo! Hey, you with the afro. Give it a rest. Beat it. Put the music back on.
This level of cognitive dissonance was even more fascinating to me because not only did they find no issue with joking about what he did, the accusations never stopped them from buying his albums, going to his concerts, and partying as if nothing had ever happened.
And this is our own fault. When we see crimes happening, R. Kelly, for example, right out in the open, and we still support his music, buy his songs, play his songs at different events, or even just while you're driving in your car, it's still supporting people that are involved in these crimes.
But as I got older, I found myself empathizing with their reasoning and actions after becoming a fan of XXXTentacion. Ironically, my first impression of X was pretty bad. I thought he was just another one of them SoundCloud screamo rappers making some bullshit music that did nothing but hurt my ears. Still, I eventually came around to liking his music after giving it another try and ending up in a YouTube wormhole filled with the rest of his material. I changed my mind about him as soon as I heard You're Thinking Too Much, Stop It, which is a crazy title now in hindsight, and officially joined the bandwagon by the time I heard Vice City. And it was from that point on that I truly believed that he'd be the next superstar of this generation. He had the musical versatility, a unique look, a cult-like following, and above all else, the it factor. But if you were an X fan at this time, then you also knew about his relationship with his girlfriend, Geneva, and the graphic accusations of domestic violence against him, along with his alleged confessions to numerous other crimes that paint the picture of an artist who was as talented as he was sadistic.
I put my source of happiness in another person, which was a mistake initially, right? But she fell through on every occasion until now. Until I started her up, bro. I started her up because she made one mistake, and from there, the whole cycle went down. Now she's scared. That girl is scared for her life, which I understand. I'm on new times for stabbing. How many people they put on the news? They said 3. It was 8. Deerfield. She know that. She did. No tears on my face. No, I swore I was going to jail. She know. She's scared. She wants to kill her.
And when X died, I felt a myriad of different conflicting emotions. How could I feel bad for the death of someone who admitted to torturing his girlfriend and stabbing 8 people? You might think it's just because I was a fan of his music, but it was deeper than that. You see, I had unknowingly developed an emotional attachment to his music and his personal story. And because of this, I tried rationalizing my conflicting feelings by pointing to different forms of trauma that he had experienced growing up as the reasoning for why he would always choose violence as his way of dealing with his issues.
I feel like many people do this as well. We look into the reason why these celebrities have done the things that they've done. In this case, a poor upbringing, and we make excuses for them so we could have reason to make it okay that we're in some way rooting for them because we love their music or because we've built a connection with them through their talent in some way or another. Really, we're manipulating our own minds.
But all it was were excuses. I made excuses to avoid being a hypocrite and compromising my morals. But this still happened despite the obvious contradiction of ignoring an artist's personal actions and letting emotional attachment and investment make you want to look the other way. And this isn't so different from what I once judged others for doing, using the same kind of reasoning, which is what ultimately gave me a better understanding of why the older heads in my life didn't want to condemn R. Kelly, even though they knew what he was doing was wrong. You see, we often have memories and emotions attached to the music we listen to, and they can help us live in a part of the past that we look back on with great fondness. And when we become emotionally attached to certain artists and their catalog, it can be difficult to reconcile their personal actions with our own moral compass. This is where the notion of separating art from the artist becomes a means of compromising for a lot of people, something I've previously discussed in more detail. But for me to hold X in such high regard, even as I acknowledge and criticize what he did, I had to ask myself, am I really any better in my thought process? The reality is that our brains naturally simplify complex information and quickly categorize people, environments, and other matters as good or bad and safe or dangerous. However, this same tendency to oversimplify situations and people causes problems and leads to cognitive biases in our everyday lives, making moral reconciliations more daunting over time. And there are 3 factors I can point to that'll help us have a better understanding of the connection between fame and predatory behavior. Not as a rule, but as a pattern.
Kobe Bryant. Okay.
The halo effect is a form of cognitive bias where your first impression of a person influences all other judgments about their character in a positive way. It's basically what's beautiful is also good. And it's one of the most powerful cognitive biases because it allows surface level impressions to dictate how we treat others. And the tricky part about the halo effect is that you rarely feel the effect as it's happening. You see, it usually begins with noticing and appreciating what catches our eye, whether it's a person's looks, their talent, or their skill in something that interests us. And from that point on, once the positive impression has set in, we allow those first impressions to influence how we perceive the rest of their personality. But the real danger of the halo effect becomes clear when it involves parasocial dynamics, because this effect prevents criticism or nuance from existing, only absolute judgments, whether they're negative or positive.
And when we think about it, we're talking about people in this world, whether they're celebrities or normal people. We know people for what they show, what they share, and what we see from them when we initially meet them and as we get to know them over time. But everyone has a side that they kind of keep to themselves. You do, I do, and we just all have our internal self that most people don't completely know, understand, or sometimes even see. And as you start to build relationships with people, you begin to see more and more of this. But we need to always remember that there's more behind the person that you're sitting there talking to than just what's being shared with you at that moment in time. And when we're making decisions about people, we need to really get to know the depths of that person before you can truly know who they are and whether they're someone that you want to associate with.
And in the case of superfans, aka stans, the extent of their defensive actions can be pretty extreme and dangerous. See the Swifties, the Barbs, and honestly anyone who listens to insert K-pop band as prominent examples of the most active stan bases we have today. When you try to present a fan base with an opinion or a fact that goes against the positive image they've created in their minds about their favorite celebrity, it'll put those fans on the defensive, making them feel like they need to take certain measures to protect the image you've attempted to alter, whether it's making excuses, ignoring negativity, or just straight up attacking you. But something often overlooked is that it's not just the fans who invest in these celebrities. Institutions that benefit from their fame also invest in them financially, which makes them very valuable and by extension, more protected. In a more complicated situation, we have the Kobe Bryant dilemma. Kobe Bryant is the most important cultural figure in basketball since Michael Jordan. Yep. Don't let Bleacher Report fool you. He is 110,000% a top 10 all-time great. Somewhere around the 5 to 7 range I think is appropriate, but anything higher and I think you'd be letting nostalgia just cloud your eyes just a little bit. Nonetheless, his influence is so strong that even today, when I see kids shooting trash into the garbage can, they still say Kobe, even if it has a fucked up origin. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Kobe!
The most impactful part about Kobe's legacy has to be the Mamba mentality. For some quick background, the Mamba mentality comes from Kobe's alter ego, the Black Mamba. You see, the real Black Mamba is one of the most dangerous snakes in the world, making it the perfect animal to symbolize Kobe's hyper-competitive, win-by-any-means-necessary attitude. Cunning, meticulous, and always ready to strike at the perfect moment. For anyone who's ever watched Kobe give your favorite player hell on offense and then turn around and give them hell on defense, all while taking every clutch shot without fear, there really is no better comparison. However, the Mamba mentality has taken on a life of its own, becoming an important part of the basketball mythos, and has even transcended sports as millions worldwide now see it as a symbol of working hard toward their goals and adopting superhuman levels of discipline in any pursuit that they embark on. But what most people forget is that the Black Mamba persona was created after Kobe's 2003 Colorado race. Now, some might point to other interviews where he says it comes from the movie Kill Bill, but let's be honest here. That's the fucking PR answer. Like just look at the difference in emotion when he explains the origins of the Mamba persona, and you tell me which one of these two interviews you believe to be the real explanation.
The Black Mamba.
Okay. Yeah. Where'd that come from?
Well, honestly, I stole it from Quentin Tarantino, to be honest with you.
Right on.
From the movie Kill Bill.
Yeah.
But it was like, you know, if you look up the Black Mamba, the snake, it's extremely deadly.
Get
extremely
it,
you know what I'm
Kobe.
saying? So like, for me, when I play basketball, that's the space I go into.
It's like
Don't
you're
mess with
Sasha
me,
Fierce.
don't talk to me, exactly.
Yeah.
In 2003, I went from a person that was at the top of his game, had everything coming, to a year later having absolutely no idea where life is going, or if you're going to be able to even be a part of life as we all know it. I hear everything that the crowd is saying, and I hear it. So it's like this place where it was my refuge is now being bombarded with all kinds of things that they would say. And I had to separate myself. Just going through that time, I felt like there's so many things coming at once. It was just becoming very, very confusing. I had to organize things. So I created the Black Mamba. So Kobe has to deal with these issues, all the personal challenges. The Black Mamba steps on court and does what he does.
What we're talking about here, and the way that this is put together, makes it sound and makes it feel like when someone has such overwhelming pressures from different areas in life, or such an internal knowledge on a topic, a genius on a topic, as you could say Kobe was a genius of basketball, they begin to get some mental deficiencies. Some people get schizophrenia, some people deal with other things, but it seems like he had to produce a persona, the Black Mamba, to deal with the insanity that he couldn't organize, as he said, in his head. So it's being masterful in something comes with a lot of mental stresses, and that has to do with scientists that are looked at as geniuses or geniuses in any different field.
It was just everywhere. I'm destroying everybody I step on the court. I had all this pent up frustration that I needed to let out. It was an avalanche, man. And, you know, there was nothing that was going to get in the way. There was nothing that was going to stop me. Battle that's going on within me that I'm carrying with me to these competitions. So it's not about you. It's not about anybody else. You're not making me go. I'm driving this thing, man, and you just so happen to be a person that's in a way that may get demolished in the process.
Regardless of which explanation you adhere to, it's clear that for Kobe, the Black Mamba was created to cope with the public backlash. He was already having issues on the court, trying to coexist with Shaq over who would be the Lakers' centerpiece, and now his personal life was under intense scrutiny that could even threaten his freedom. But when Nike saw the Black Mamba, they capitalized on this self-adopted alter ego as a great marketing tactic to clean up his public image. They
I
used
see
their
that.
large platform to convey the idea that Kobe the person isn't the same as Kobe the player. You see, Nike shifted the focus away from Kobe's off-court issues and instead promoted his on-court image, emphasizing his status as the best in the world, backing it by giving him their best signature shoe line since Jordan, and airing commercial campaigns featuring Kanye West and Bruce Willis, further associating him and his brand with innovation and brilliance. And as the Black Mamba persona helped him play at a high level and win championships again, this time as the Lakers' main star, along with having his persona become a major source of inspiration for people who wanted to overcome their own obstacles, suddenly the stench of words like infidelity and were removed from his jacket. Instead, Kobe would now be synonymous with the traits of his Black Mamba persona, having hard work and extreme self-confidence be the focal point of how the public perceives him. And it worked. But make no mistake, it only worked because we wanted it to. And Nike foresaw that we would. Because no one wants to believe that someone they care about and look up to could commit terrible acts. So if you give them a narrative that's enough, rationalizes the situation, or just takes their attention away to focus on something more important, they'll accept it.
Essentially, what Nike did was they utilized marketing to give us a narrative that, as fans of Kobe that wanted to forget the negative things, that we'd be able to latch onto. And honestly, almost everyone did.
Forget that he was routinely abused to his teammates. Forget that he only cheated on his wife in Colorado at best. Forget that he only cared about himself on the court, and just focus on the fact that he gave every team in the league 40. Focus on how he is the greatest scoring game in NBA history. Focus on how he played through injuries that most guys would have load managed. Focus on how he dropped 60 in his last game ever. Just focus on how he gave 100% every single day of his life. This isn't an attempt to slander Kobe, because none of us truly know what happened in that hotel room back then. Although, I do encourage anyone who's curious about it to read the case details so you can make your own conclusions. I use this situation to illustrate how beloved figures involved in questionable circumstances can have their reputations restored thanks to a strong positive persona that's too deeply ingrained to be altered. And how, moreover, if a person is valuable to valuable people, things can, and in most cases, will go their way. This is the halo effect in peak form. Not just stands ignoring a situation or making excuses altogether. In this case, the institutions used their power and influence to give the public something else to focus on because they stood to gain millions, if not billions, from it.
And I was going to say the same thing. It's about them making money, right? Let's be honest. Nike wasn't just trying to give a good name to Kobe. They were trying to cash in on it.
In a world ruled by the halo effect, skeptics are treated like blasphemers, and even indifference becomes the equivalent of hate. And because we're social beings and have a built-in mechanism to trust and believe in things that not only look good, but also make us feel good, we're inherently vulnerable to this kind of manipulation to varying degrees. Some would say, you don't know these people, so you shouldn't look up to them in any way, shape, or form. But with celebrities and even influencers these days constantly in our faces, it's hard to say that you've never admired any of these figures or connected emotionally with their story at some point in your life. And the reality is that even if you don't find them worthy of admiration, millions of other people do, and to a large extent. And more often than not, their emotional investment is exploited by the very people they admire because the halo effect and its damaging biases are not overlooked. They're actually taken advantage of by those who benefit from them. And no one benefits more from the halo effect than narcissists. Let's look at Kanye West and Diddy. The two might not seem to have much in common on the surface, but if you look closer, they're pretty similar at their core. Two black men who grew up in environments where they were overlooked by their peers, struggled with expressing masculinity and exploring sexuality in a healthy way, yet were driven by deep insecurities and ambitious dreams of reshaping hip-hop and ultimately the world in their image. For Kanye, his need for special validation initially stemmed from wanting to be the greatest artist alive. And by the time his Dark Fantasy album came out, most critics and fans conceded to the notion that he had the greatest musical discography of his generation. For Diddy, his outlet was always wanting to be the center of attention despite lacking any semblance of traditional talent. However, it was through utilizing his only real skill of organization and promotion that he was able to bring this goal to fruition. He was able to gather talented individuals individuals together under his supervision, curate their image, and calculatedly promote and exploit them for maximum profits, while making sure to do all them goofy ass dances in their videos so that people won't forget that he is the real star.
Yeah, if you didn't realize, as someone who grew up with Diddy and music that he produced, he was always in the music videos and even had a line here and there in many people's music videos because he was looking for some of that exposure. He wanted some of that fame. He wanted all of us to know that he was behind the success of all of these artists. And eventually, because we all knew that, when he would put out an album of his own, we'd all kind of flock to it, we'd go to it, we'd listen to it, and we'd support it.
These two men, for all intents and purposes, had reached their initial goals, which were already pretty lofty and virtually impossible for 99.9% of people to achieve. But the thing about narcissists is that the goals will keep escalating because they need more to satisfy their superiority complex. And as the goals expand, so does their power. And with more power comes more desperation to uphold that superhero image. Remember, that's the true goal of narcissists, to achieve and maintain that grandiose image by any means necessary. So if you're a narcissist, it goes as follows. Once I accomplish one goal, I can't stop now because people will forget about me and they'll forget how special I am, how great I am. And that cannot happen. And this is where Ye and Diddy begin to parallel each other, because once they achieved their foundational goals of becoming musical powerhouses, their new objectives involved conquering territories beyond music altogether. Kanye wanted to become the most influential fashion designer in the world, and he did. Diddy wanted to take over the liquor industry once he had accomplished all he could in the music industry, and he did. Meanwhile, in between all their accomplishments, they left a trail of burned bridges and broken people by choosing to satisfy their delusions of grandeur. Diddy has been accused of sexual assault by over 80 people at this point, with some of them being minors when the assaults took place. And anyone who stood next to him in the 90s and 2000s is either dead, went to jail, or ran away from him to go find God. Kanye has said everything from slavery was a choice to I love him, cozied up to a fascist, unnecessarily revealed to the world that he almost aborted his daughter, in addition to many other public family fiascos and falling outs with his good music artists.
I mean, honestly, there could be an entire video series on both Kanye and on Diddy on this channel, because there's so much depth behind them, what they were, who they were, and a lot of things and mistakes that they made along the way.
And has also been accused of assault as well, which doesn't sound so out of place given his well-documented and self-admitted porn addiction and other encounters with women in the industry. At their peaks, they both embodied what was cool to an entire culture and generation. They were symbols of what it meant to be unapologetically yourself and successful. But what happens in the dark will eventually come to light. But to paint the full picture, we also have to consider a person's life experiences and the traumas they've endured. Not as an excuse, but to understand how these people became so emotionally disconnected to begin with, because the things that happened to us in our formative years make us the adults that we are today. And those experiences, along with our coping mechanisms, can either enhance these existing dark traits or be the reason why they develop in the first place. For the most part, I don't believe that people are born with dark personality traits. I think they just drew the unlucky hand of being raised in a toxic environment by unhealed souls and becoming a product of negative defense mechanisms. In an ideal world, people would heal themselves before having children of their own, except that most people who are emotionally broken either lack the self-awareness to know that or lack the knowledge to even begin the process of confronting themselves. Nonetheless, understanding why people do what they do is important because it helps us become better individuals by breaking the cycle ourselves. And more importantly, understanding how people develop dark personality traits helps us see that these aren't mythical monsters in the night. They're hurt people who hurt people.
I believe that certain people are also born with the genetic makeup that also determines who they become as they get older. Obviously, that's also influenced by upbringing and experiences through growth, but we are all born with different scientific makeups that definitely, in my opinion, play into who we are and the things that we do as adults. If you found this topic interesting, let's take a look at some of the victims of, let's say, Diddy. You'll find them in this video, and I'll see you guys over there.